Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jeanna if you're new here, and I make videos all about perfectionism, self-love, mom life, and also being a health coach. I am so glad you're here today. I have a near and dear topic to talk about today, and it is all about self-care. So if you've seen the title already, it says the dangers of self-care. Usually you don't see danger and self-care in the same sentence together. Usually self-care is considered something positive, something you should be doing regularly, something that people who are in a good state of mind are doing. But I also want to talk about today how it can turn into something a little bit toxic for you. So stay tuned about that. I'm going to go through a few things to do with self-care and some things you can do at the end to avoid the dangers of self-care that I talk about today. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you go ahead and do that. Click the notification bell so you know when I'm coming out with new videos, which is around 2 times a month at the moment. I do have a 6-month-old and am in postpartum, in my postpartum journey, which I am going to make a video about that soon. Stay tuned. So if you have notifications turned on, you will know when I come out with that video as soon as I do. And make sure to like this video if this is stuff that you love to hear about. I love to hear about this stuff: self-care, self-love, perfectionism, how we can all make ourselves a little bit better every day, and what we can do to love ourselves more and more. Just a little bit about who I am. I am a health coach, integrative nutrition health coach. I graduated from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I also am a musical theater performer. So I worked on a cruise ship for almost a decade and was in this performing realm, this performing world where people were struggling with self-love, body image issues, eating disorders, lots and lots of toxic negativity to do with themselves, to do with their environment. And it was brought on by this career choice, this environment that I was in, and to do a lot with our media and culture that we surrounded ourselves with. So I feel like I have spoken a lot to this topic, and it is something that I have experienced firsthand and have gone through the journey of really working on this particular topic in myself, and I hope to inspire you through this video. Okay, so first things first, I want to define what self-care is, because there are so many different definitions. I was doing a little bit of research on this topic before I am making this video, and I saw a couple of different definitions which I want to point out to you. I have them written on my phone here, so I'm just going to read them off here. The dictionary, just the regular self-care definition, is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. So that's a very generalized definition. It doesn't go into detail about anything that has to do with what specifically you should be doing for self-care. It talks about protecting your well-being and happiness, especially during times of stress. So that's pretty general. Doesn't really give any detail about what that is. The World Health Organization says the ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and to cope with illness and disability with or without the support of healthcare providers. So this is around like health upkeep, so making sure you're maintaining your health. So there's kind of a little bit of stress around preventing disease and coping with illness and making sure that you are working on not becoming disabled, or those sorts of things. So I found that particular definition to be very interesting, because it's a very scoped out focus on health in particular. The next one that I want to talk about is some examples that I saw online. So underneath, and you can just Google this, this is basically what I did, is I Googled some examples of self-care, and it's exercising regularly, eating healthy foods. I'm sure we've heard all of these before. Fostering and maintaining healthy relationships, getting good quality sleep, seeking professional help when you need it, and following treatment plans for current ailments or diseases. Some of these things I have also mentioned as a health coach, and some of them are specific and some of them are quite generalized. So This is something we like to see all the time. Sorry, my kitty's in. She wants to cuddle. We see this kind of thing all the time. It's in the form of like a to-do list, a checklist. And that is something that I really want to talk about today in particular. But the last thing I want to mention is a lot of these checklist, to-do list things were physical things that you can do to your physical body. So many of us look to self-care checklists of physical activities that we can do. This in particular is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to make this video, because I used to love the topic of self-care and self-love. I still do, but I used to look at it in a different light. So I used to look at it as, you know, I should be doing all these things. I should make this amazing morning routine and evening routine. And there's still nothing wrong with that, but I was putting too much of the focus on ticking boxes, making sure I was getting all these things done, because if I shared them online, or if I ticked off some boxes that I wanted to do that maybe I thought self-care was, then it would just make me feel like I was accomplishing something. That perfectionism type A personality, don't know if you're like that, but I certainly was and am still struggling with. But you want to feel accomplished, right? You want to feel like you're doing something and getting things done. And I was turning that element of my life and that element of my mental stress and turning that to my self-care. So what I was struggling with perfectionism, which was like you're always focused on doing instead of being, and you want to keep doing and performing for your love or for acceptance or whatever. So I wanted to keep doing things, checking off boxes to make myself feel better, even if it meant something that was supposed to be making me feel better, but it really didn't. It actually creates this anxious energy inside of you and makes you feel like, well, what I have done is not enough, because actually it's not what you wanted to do for self-care. It's all of the expectations that you see out there in the world of what you should be doing and what self-care really is. So that's why I wanted to start with a definition of what self-care is online. The next part of this video I want to talk about is self-care expectations. Okay, let me just talk about self-care as a societal phenomenon. It used to be not even spoken of online, and then all of a sudden, when it was something that I was really into based on going to school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where they talk about loving yourselves in all different ways, not just nutritionally and not just with exercise, but with relationships, spirituality, your home environment, your mental health, you know, things like that. So I really just started to find my groove in this topic, and I didn't really see it online. All of a sudden, in the last like 5 years, it has been a trend to hashtag Instagram, like I'm loving myself, self-love, self-care. And don't get me wrong, like I've been that person, I was that person, and I am that person. But it is also something that has become trendy and something that people want to share to receive a certain feedback in return. So whether it's likes, whether it's comments, whether it's follows, whether it's, you know, somebody noticing them that they're doing something good for themselves. And honestly, that is not what self-care is. That's why it's called self-care. It's for you. It is absolutely and utterly for you. It is not for the world, it is not for Instagram, and it is not for our culture. So what this article says, that I'm going to read from my phone again, Dr. Perpetua Neo says, who's a psychologist, self-care is fetishized. Anyway, that word. It's a fetish and has become Instagrammable. People think there are check boxes to tick, standards to upkeep, and yet they don't understand why they do what they do. So they're not really understanding why they're doing it. They just see that it's something they should be doing, checking those boxes, like I said before, and they want to share that to get instant gratification back from their, the doing, the performing of self-care and self-love. So that is the first thing that I want to talk about with expectations, and also obsessing over the correct way to do self-care. Really, there is no right way to do self-care. That's why it is called self-care. It is for you. No matter what you do for yourself, if that's something that you need and it's not something that someone told you should be doing, like meditating. If I have a client who doesn't want to meditate, who doesn't like to meditate, I have to respect that about them and what they need for their bodies and what they need for their health. Not everybody wants to do that, but it is a trendy thing to do right now. So you have to look at it that way. Why are you meditating? Are you doing it because people say you should be doing it and it's great for you and, it is something that people expect? Or is it something that you really want to do for your health because it's something that you enjoy? Another thing that Dr. Neo says is the social pressures around wellness are numerous. The wellness industry has created space for improved mental health, yes, but it's also morphed into just another way to be perfect. Like, it's easy to have the perfect diet, perfect body, and yes, even the perfect self-care routine. So we're really focusing on how to do something correctly, how to do it perfectly, how to showcase that we are the epitome of wellness and the epitome of self-love, and that is our purpose behind why we're doing some things. So that is not why self-care is what it is. It is mainly for you, and it's not what you should be doing. It's what you know in your soul and your heart what you should be doing. Sorry, not should. What you want to do for yourself. The very last thing I'll mention about expectations is that self-care is supposed to be positive. It is supposed to be relaxing. It is supposed to be something that you enjoy. If you are not enjoying it, if you find, like for me, it's just a box that you didn't get to tick that day, or it's something you're not living up to or not accomplishing that day, it makes you feel like you're failing in some way. So take out the expectations of what you need to get done that day, even if it is your self-care routine. If doing that nighttime routine exactly perfectly and in the right order and doing it every night, and you just can't live without doing that particular self-care routine, then it's not doing you any good. It's actually creating harm. So looking at the title of Dangers of Self-Care, that's what I mean. It's actually causing you mental strain. So I have Miss Kitty down here. You probably can't see her, but she is very needy. She's a very needy cat, and she is right in front of me. All right, the very last section of this video is basically redefining what self-care means to you. And the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to reflect, journal, have some introspection about what self-care is for you in your life and what brings you joy. It's not about what you should be doing, what some book or some article or some Instagram follower that you have told you should be doing. It's basically whatever you want to do to bring you the most joy in your life. And if you need some help with this, I actually have a downloadable PDF that is in the description box, so make sure to click that. It is absolutely free, and it is basically a reflection worksheet for how you're going to redefine your self-care moving forward, as opposed to letting society and social media dictate what self-care is in your life. The next thing is, don't make a list about your self-care. Basically, create a space of time, whether it's in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, for you to explore the idea of self-care and self-love and where that fits into your life. Don't act like you need to, check boxes, get things done. It's basically just opening up space for you to explore this. And that's what a lot of us do not do. They do not open up space for ourselves and give ourselves time. Time is the most important thing that we can give ourselves, and it doesn't have to be checking boxes. It doesn't have to be taking a bath, dry brushing, doing a massage, and stretching and yoga and, you know, all the things. It can just be a space of time that is given to you that you can do whatever you need for yourself. Next, self-care can be as big or as small as you want it to be. It can be as big as buying a house, if that's gonna give you the joy that you need in your life. You know, what are those steps that you need to take? What's the space that needs to open up for you? I mean, that's pretty big, right? Or it can be something along the lines of 3 breaths. If you give yourself time for those 3 breaths, that can bring you joy. That can bring you self-care. So just because it's something small does not mean that it cannot be self-care. And just because it's something big doesn't mean that it's not considered self-care. It can still be something that is pushing you towards your own joy and happiness. And the very last tip that I have for you around the dangers of self-care is you can choose to share or not to share around the idea of self-care. So it's your choice. I will say that if sharing something that you're doing for yourself and around the idea of self-care brings anxiety to you and makes you feel like it needs to be perfect, then I would recommend not sharing it or not feeling like you need to show people what you're doing or that you're accomplishing things. If it's not doing you any good or giving you mental strain, it is not worth doing. And that includes self-care. If the self-care is giving you strain, don't do it. So just to summarize, we chatted about what the definition of self-care is. We talked about the expectations we have in our society around self-care. And then we talked about some ways to redefine what your version of self-care is. So I can't wait for you to comment and like and tell me all the things you loved about this video, what you learned, what you think I should talk about next time, or let me know, DM me on my Instagram account and make sure to follow me there and we can start a conversation over on that platform. Make sure to also click the link below and download that PDF so that you can work on what self-care means to you on your own time without any checked or ticked boxes, no to-do lists here today. So if you did like this video, make sure to like and subscribe before you leave, and I will see you next time.